Flosstube, it's Arlene here. It's Saturday, August 8th, and I know it's been a while since I've made a video. And I especially know that because sometime in these last few weeks, I did a major update on my computer. My laptop is what I film on, and I just had a weird experience trying to get into iMovie. But I think it's because of that update and everything's a little different, so we'll see how this goes. So yes, it's been a while. Last time I was here was mid to late June, and it's been a weird summer. I mean, I think everyone is going to be saying that. It's just weird times in these days as we are dealing with a very different world right now. Um, Last weekend would have been the New Jersey Flosstube retreat, and which I canceled some time back for all, made sense. um, but there's a sadness in the realization that the in-person connections, whether it be, multi-day retreats or one-day stitch gathering with your friends or what have you, there's just a sadness that those things haven't happened. Obviously outside of stitching world, but I don't know, there's something about having such good memories of the first two retreats. It is what it is. So we move forward, we move on, but that would have been taken up some amount of time in terms of the planning and the fun stuff that just didn't happen in these last few weeks. The other thing to just comment on briefly is that the education world. I'm a teacher doing a variety of things right now, but my spring, my summer going forward, I am doing some virtual teaching and tutoring, but I am on many teacher Facebook groups and so on where there's so much conversation. There is no good solution. Whether you are a teacher, an administrator, a parent, do kids go back to school? Do they go back part of the time? Do they only have online options? It's a hard world to be in right now, and I realize it's so many people are involved in this world. It's the teachers, it's the parents, and the people who have to make the decisions who are not necessarily on the ground. There was more than one person on a particular teacher Facebook group that was sharing the details of what her school, if it was her school or her district, whatever it was, plan. And it was, every teacher is kind of responding, there is no way one person can do this. A full-on plan for in-person students, as well as attending to the ones that are sort of live streaming in at the same time as the live, as well as those who don't have the ability to live stream in and need other things at other times. And the teacher needs to prepare for all of that at the same time of trying to get kids to keep masks on and social distance, and at the same time, parents, working parents, parents who have no other options, single parents, need the kids to have a normal school life, and yet we all acknowledge this isn't a normal school life. This isn't a normal life for any of us. And so just know that everyone involved we're all in a tough place right now, and we'll see how it all plays out. And at the same time, I'm actually looking for some new opportunities, so that has just added an extra level of stress to the whole summertime thinking forward into the fall. So, and I need to give one other update, which is a little hard for me, so bear with me here. I have from time to time mentioned my dog, who is not really my dog. She was my parents' dog. Her name is Maddie, and it was time to say goodbye to her at the end of June. And as you could see, I still have a hard time with this. She was 16. She lived a good life. If you're sort of new to me or relatively new to me, both my parents passed away 2 years ago during the summer, 8 weeks apart, and left behind Maddie. She had 14 good years with them and just about 2 years with me, and I miss having her in my life. So that alone, it's like the last week of June, it has made the weeks afterwards a little hard. And I think those of you who are pet people totally get it. You know, and I have an older couple, neighbors of mine, and they would see me out there with Maddie multiple times a day, but particularly in the morning walk. And I hadn't been out for a week or so at those times, and I was out getting a walk for myself. They saw me, they called me over. And the wife, who has such a strong North Jersey accent, I'm in Central Jersey, and I don't think I have any kind of Jersey accent, and I wish I could do it in her voice. She's like, they are our family. Non-people don't get it. And, you know, I'll mildly disagree. I think non-pet people might get it, but Maddie really was my family. And she was also the last physical connection to my parents, because we have also sold off the home that we grew up in, my sisters and I. So saying goodbye to her was really the end of multiple eras of my life. So that's a little bit of personal update. And now let's get into some stitching things, people, because that's what you're here for. Thank you so much for being here. I should say that. I have not watched a whole lot of Flosstube this summer for a number of reasons. But when I do, I am just always so amazed with everything that everyone is doing out there. And, you know, of course, there's always the side of, well, what could I bring to the table? Especially because I don't have the amount of stitching, the variety of stitching, or variety of projects that many, if not most, Flosstubers show. So if you've taken the time to come see me, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, so there we go. All right, so, and then another reason why I haven't been around or haven't done a Flosstube video is the stitching, the main stitching that I've been doing since my last video. And I had to go back and double check this. So in that last video, I commented about I was waiting for fabric to arrive. And I think I even said out loud that I never get good mail on Saturdays kind of thing. Well, that fabric arrived that afternoon after I, got my mail after doing the video. And so I started a new project that night. I've been working on it up through last weekend or so, and I finished it. And it's not something I'm going to be showing you right now. It is a Works by ABC design that will be forthcoming, but for a number of reasons, it's not ready to be revealed. But that's been my major stitching for all these weeks. And it's hard to come onto a Flosstube and say, I got nothing to show you. And there's also an element of, for those who don't do it on a regular basis, whether it's every week, end of the month, whatever your schedule might be, if you make Flosstube videos like I do, and it's just like, it feels like a good time to do it. It's hard when you're waiting for that feeling of it's a good time to do it. And I've been wanting to push myself to do this. So here I am. So not showing you the major project from these past few weeks, but since then, I started on something new, actually a couple things new, and I want to share with you about this. This is a design that there's a number of directions I might go with it in the future, but I'm sharing with you right now. When I started playing around with this, I wasn't sure what direction to go, so I ended up going in two directions. That'll make sense in a minute. Those of you who've been around, see my work, in addition to cross stitch, I do love doing other types of needlework, and that includes counted canvas work. When you work on canvas, like needlepoint canvas, I tend to not use the word needlepoint in my mind, rightly or wrongly. I think of needlepoint as something where the design is already painted onto the canvas, and there's all varieties of that, how well it's painted and so on. To me, that's what I think of as needlepoint. When you start with a blank canvas and work from there, I tend to call it counted canvas work. That's just what I do. So, so I had this idea that, I want to try something with this design I was working on in counted canvas. But then I started thinking further, well, I could do a cross stitch of this, but then it just becomes like a full coverage piece. And then I thought, well, what if I did a version on linen, we would use for cross stitch, but really focused on specialty stitches. You know, what do you call it like that when there's barely any cross stitch on a piece? I think there's names for it. I'm going with counted thread. And the reason I'm going with that is because on occasion, I've mentioned the Woodlawn Needlework exhibit, happens in Virginia every year. I remember asking or inquiring about this to be specific, but the way they would categorize a piece that comes in that has a lot of stitches on it, on fabric, would be putting it under the counted thread category. Now, what I'm not clear about is that they also have a category that says sampler, parentheses, 4 or more stitches. And I feel like one year I asked about this and I don't remember the answer. What's the difference between a counted thread piece and sampler, parentheses, more than 4 stitches? Whatever. So back to where I was going with. I had this idea for, well, which way should I go? A canvas work piece or a counted thread on linen piece? So I've started both and we'll see where this goes. So let me start by showing you where I am. Oh, we need, is that going to work? There you go. So with this version, you could see what the whole design is. It's based off a geometric pattern design that I saw, and I was like, that could be something really cool. And the challenge of trying to translate it in, like to graph it, to in effect pixelate it to get those shapes, I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out. If you can envision that there's basically 5 circles of shapes. And so I was thinking about 5 different stitches. Yes, easy. Lots of books. Actually, that area right there, my bookshelf, is kind of slipped over because a number of the books are off the shelf right now because I'm using them. 5 different stitches. And then, because of canvas work, I was thinking, well, what about 5 different types of thread? Now, I also could have brought in 5 different colors, but to me, doing all 3 of those felt like too much. Who knows? But so I went with the idea of 5 different stitches using 5 different types of thread, but having them all the same color shade. Now, I don't know how this is all going to turn out. We shall see. Again, let me put this closer. Trying to give you a close-up of the different stitches. Now, I have paused in this partially because I'm waiting for some more threads to arrive. And sort of each layer, each circle has different issues of why I'm not continuing to work on it, which is fine. I got the shipping notice yesterday. My threads are in the mail to me. But let me just share a little bit, since I know many people who watch Flosstube are very much in the cross-stitch world, and maybe you don't see a lot of different threads. Outside, I want to say the typical cross-stitch threads. If you're lucky enough to have an LNS that you could walk into, and if your LNS is, strictly cross-stitch, you might not see these kinds of threads. If your store is covers a lot of things, you probably do. I think many cross-stitchers are familiar with Rainbow Gallery's Petite Treasure Braid. It is, and here's mine. It has become this thinness. It has become a good substitute for Kreinik braids for those who don't like working with the Kreinik. It doesn't really bother me, but whatever, there's some people that will absolutely go to a Petite Treasure braid. So you're familiar with this. Rainbow Gallery has tons of different types of threads. So in each of those 5 areas, as like an underlayer in different ways, I'm using something called Mandarin floss. Now, you might want to get familiar with this. This thread, which is also 6-ply, just like a DMC, and like many other specialty threads, Gast and Weeks and all of those. It's made out of bamboo, which just makes it's very soft, and it comes in lots of colors. It's a matte it doesn't shine. It's not shiny. And if it's the effect you're going for, like you don't want, the shine, so to speak, of silk threads, and you can even say a lot of times DMC has that bit of sheen to it. Try some mandarin floss if you can get your hands on it. So, working outward or from the center, I'm using something called Frosty Rays, which is a weird looking thread. Let's see if I got it focused on. There we go. You could see it almost looks like a ribbon, but what it is like they call it a tubular thing, and it's got, yeah, you can see that, like a metallic thread running through it. Now, Rainbow Gallery has another, I'm not going to remember the name, another one that just is the tube. Okay. Now, you could do all kinds of things with a thread like this, particularly if you kind of keep it flat and lay it flat, like ribbon-like, or if you, I can't hold this area, and it's not coming through. I mean, it gives sort of a funky shine to it in a different way than a typical metallic would. It's not coming through super well on screen, but there we go. I wanted to include a shiny rayon, for the sheen of a rayon. This is what's in there right now called patina. This is one of the replacement threads I'm waiting for. It just, the thickness, it's just not working for me. There is another, it's called panache, I think. That's one of the threads on the way to me that I'm hoping is going to work better than this. Silk lame braid. This says for 18 count. There's also one, I'm pretty sure I'm saying this right, that's petite silk lame braid. That would work pretty well in a lot of cross stitch fabrics. I mean, not 40 count, but this one, I don't know how to compare that. Where am I? Is it focusing? No. I don't know how to compare this thickness wise to DMC 3 strands maybe. I don't know, but it's a silk thread with a shiny sparkle in it. Oh, I love this. Very velvet. I mean, it is a velvet. I think you could even see like what the texture is. My issue with this in this project is that this is too thick. It says of it, works for 18 count. For the stitch I want to use there, it's too thick. But there is a petite very velvet that is on its way to me. And is that, yes, I guess these are the 6 that I have started working with. 6 because the mandarin floss goes on all the stitches, and then the other 5 for the different areas. There might be a few replacements. The actual stitches I'm using, I'm not going to remember the names. I don't. If you really want to know the name, leave it in a comment. I am not 100% sure those will be the ones I stick with, but we're going to see how this evolves. So this project, like I said, I started working on it. Oh, and the black area is cross stitch. I mean, I certainly take advantage of cross stitch when it's the right thing to do, even on canvas. I put this aside, ordered some new threads, awaiting their arrival, and then I started working on the counted thread linen version of this project. And that, you can see I don't have the outline complete yet. I'm used to seeing it like this. So I haven't complete, I still have, this only has 3 of like the circles in it. So I still have 2 more to go. I did, as you can see, that pink area, I'd stitched that in because, so this is 32 count 32 count fabric in Flax by Zweigart. Back to my 5s. So the whole idea, 5 different stitches, 5 different types of thread, 5 different colors was too much for the blue one. And so I eliminated the color aspect and just left 5 different stitches, 5 different threads. For this, I was going to stick with, I'm just going with DMC. I vaguely thought, I'll pick out over dyes. And I just stuck with DMC. I picked a color palette that I really like as you start in the center and go outward. So 5 different colors, 5 different stitches, not 5 different threads. So that's my thinking, is that 2 sets of 5 is good enough. Good. 3 sets of 5 distorts and doesn't make it as effective. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. So this one will be different types of stitches, and you could see what I have in there right now. It looks like it's focusing. Are actually large X's with little plus signs in between. I don't remember the name of that, but different variety of things like that. The reason that's in there is because, so this is 32 count. I naturally picked up 2 strands of DMC and started working on the border. And I got like 2 of the petals done, and I was like, this doesn't, I mean, it looked fine if it was a cross stitch, good coverage kind of thing. But I wanted to make sure in the end I have a piece where the border lines don't stand out. They are just, they're there, but they don't stand out. And so I stopped, I did a couple of petals in one strand, and I'm like, you know what? I need to see what it looks like with something filled in. So that's why I filled in one of them. And this is exactly what I want. So I pulled out the 2 strand petals and have been working in 1 strand. So this is like my active, like what am I going to be stitching on later tonight kind of project. And once I get those blue threads in, it's going to be like a fight every night, you know. Do I do the linen version or the canvas version? I don't know. It's like I want both of them worked on at the same time, which is very rare. I mean, I'm usually a one project at a time person, and I'm tempted to say I will continue with one till it is finished and then go continue with the other. But, you know, it's trying to decide what to work on. Now, in these last few weeks, I have been doing some design work. For those who don't know, I am Works by ABC. You can find my store on Etsy. I'll link it below. Mostly cross-stitch designs, but also some canvas work and some black work. And so I'm in this place where I want to, I'm only designing things that I want to stitch, which is great. But there's also a limit of how many hours there are in a day and how much a person can stitch at a time. And I mean, I know I need to explore for the future the idea of model stitchers for my work. But at this moment, I want to be stitching everything that I'm designing. So I'm in a little funky state. Anyway, one of the designs that will come out eventually is a band sampler. Totally inspired, pulled from a book from, I think it's 1596. I love old pattern books. When I say old, I'm talking centuries old pattern books, and just looking for things that, motifs, areas, whatever, that feel like they could still have a fresh look, 300-400 years later. I found a set of stitches that were in a pattern book, sort of laid out in columns. I'm like, that would make a good band sampler. I did pause in my big piece that I'm not showing you just to get this all set to go. And so I started it. So this is, and it's tiny, and I didn't necessarily want to be doing it tiny. That's a separate story, which I'll share when there's more of it to share. But this is the beginning of a band sampler. I am using DMC. This is not called, colorist is the ones that have huge amounts of change of color. I forget what this kind is called. So this has got blues and purples in it, as well as, and I need to pull out what's actually here because I need to go a lighter shade, as well as a thread to go with the main thread. So this is the beginning of a band sampler. You could see I'm doing it on banding, and we'll see where that goes, and we'll see when I get back to it, because all right, I think I can explain why I got it started. In these days of quarantine, coming out of quarantine, what's open, what's not open, I just felt it really important to have projects that I want to do at the ready. My LNS is open right now. I'm so grateful for them. They're doing a wonderful thing that they're open, Monday through Saturday, which would be their typical hours, but they've set aside Tuesday to only be open for appointments. And for the people who are still feeling like whether they don't want to be around others or very few others, or just, the point of keeping a little bit of extra distance and I assume only allowing a small number of people in at a time. That's a great balance. So just in case things shut down again, which we're hoping they don't, I want to have everything good to go. Now, I have managed to lose my little piece of paper. How did that happen? Oh, it fell on the floor. Cool, because I wouldn't know what to talk about. That is, yeah, there we go. That's like the stitching list to talk about here. A related fun thing to share with you. If you are familiar with Reddit, reddit.com, it is a, I don't even know what the big word to describe it. I mean, it's sort of a big giant forum, not that much unlike Facebook, but different. People, and I looked this up, it's like the 5th largest by number of people who are signed up for it. No, that's not right. I forget, it's the 5th largest something, and you can predict what the larger ones are. Google, Amazon, Facebook. What's the 4th one? What would be the 4th? It'll come to me. Anyway, so Reddit is a place where you can go and sign up with a whole bunch of what are called subreddits, which is the equivalent of a Facebook group, but sign up to see what's going on in those areas, those groups. People post pictures, you comment on each other's picture. There's all kinds of really great interaction going on. If you are looking for a new place, there's all kinds of things. Obviously, there's a cross-stitch subreddit. And this month, I am the artist of the month. Every month they feature, and this subreddit has thousands and thousands of people. Now, I'm not going to remember. I recently did a blog post, and maybe I'll link that below, to, and I know I looked up the statistics when I wrote that, about how many thousands of people are on the cross-stitch subreddit. So I am the artist of the month. If you are interested in learning more about Reddit, Google it, check it out, see if it's something you might want to join. And, there's all kinds of forums and interesting topics to be a part of. And certainly cross-stitching and other forms of stitching are out there for you to join. And if you go there in this month, you will see me at the top as the featured artist of the month. So that's super cool. And I appreciate a friend of mine that made that happen for me. Next thing on my list is just to talk briefly about a couple of really important gifts that I've had since I last saw you. One of them, it sends a good message. Many of us have been home for quite some time, or spent a lot more time in their homes than they might be used to. And this is thanks to a sweet member of my stitch group. She stitched a bunch of these and sent them out to us. And it's just, we can't get together every month like we normally would in person. We have gotten a pretty good Zoom thing going on, and I so appreciate having them. That regularity of connecting over Zoom, not in person, which would be better, but that regularity of connecting with stitching people, so we're stitching and chatting, whatever, has meant a real lot to me. It's been super important. And then, speaking of my stitch group, as I said before, the New Jersey retreat would have been last weekend. And last weekend, I opened my door and found a box, and it was one of my stitch group members who had driven and left it at my door with a gift that she said she would have been giving it to me at the retreat. On Saturday night of the retreat, we would do a smalls exchange and other kinds of announcements or things or so. And she said she wished she could be presenting this to me at that time. And she had gotten it like almost a year ago and had been holding on to it for me for this long. I need a much more elegant way to keep this other than a plastic baggie, but it is what it is. And I'm not even gonna be able to hold everything up, but I'm just gonna show you this. And it's just a random grouping in my hands. So if you are not familiar, these are lace bobbins. And if you, this one has writing on it. Huh. I thought I'd pulled out the ones that had special things on it. If you have watched some of my early other floss tubes, you know I talk about bobbin lace because that's another one of the things I love doing. I will admit I have not done much lace making in these last few months, even though, you know, in theory I have the time to do it. I've been more in the stitching world than the lace world. Like everything else, my monthly lace group hasn't been meeting and so on. But she found this set, and this really looks like somebody's collection of bobbins. What is so cool, I think, well, first of all, these are bobbins with beads on the bottom. They are called spangled. Don't ask me why, but when you have beads at the bottom, they're spangled bobbins. They are most common in England English lace making, but not limited to. And what I love is the variety. They are not all the same. You know, looking at the woods, can you see the woods are different? The styles are different. The purpose of the beads is to give a little bit of weight, little, but important bit of weight, so that when you're working on a lace pillow, it's just that extra amount that will keep the threads going. When you work with bobbins that are not spangled, which is what most of my bobbins are, they usually have, how can I show this? Well, here, this is a good one. Like this one, it's kind of odd that this one is spangled, and it almost looks like the hole was kind of an afterthought. Because a bobbin like this, with this little bit of extra wood at the bottom, does that extra weight that's needed. So a bobbin like this, which is very much like a cylinder, is made knowing that there's going to be beads put at the bottom. This one looks unusual to me. So this gift of knowing something that I love, and those of you who get gifts or give gifts, you know, it's thread, it's patterns, it's fabric. It's wonderful in our world that we share like this. And for someone to recognize another world that I love and see something and get it for me, you know, it's so sweet. She also sent some threads. And I had pulled aside, just to give you all the sense, bobbins, there are some people that are bobbin collectors. There's all kinds of specialty ones. And so you can see this one has a flower on it. This one has like a little, is it a bear? I don't know. Here's a bird. So there are people who collect these bobbins. Now, some people won't even use their collector bobbins. Other people will. There's also a sweet tradition in lace world that whenever you're at an event, like a retreat or a class or a lace day or whatever, that you should have a souvenir bobbin for those events. And I do. For just about every lace thing I have been to, I have a bobbin, and those aren't bobbins I use. They're just sort of the collection that I do have. And then the last one I'll show you is this one. It says, "Forget the housework. I'm busy being creative." So appreciate the thoughtfulness that exists out there. And it really is a case that when you see something that you know would make another person smile, if it's in your power to get it and give it to that person, do it. Just do it. Piece of paper. What else to talk about? Speaking of lace, this came out just about 2 weeks ago, and it, got the lace world, Facebook forums and so on excited, that I just wanted to share with you. I'm going to put a link below. Christian Dior came out with, its line, how those fashion shows that happen somewhere that are not really clothes like the normal people buy, but they had come out with whatever their summer collections, whatever collection it was. And there's a particular dress that was made with handmade bobbin lace. So that's very unusual. Lace could certainly be a part, and has been a part of, a lot of designer you know, fancy designer things, but it's very rare to see something that is handmade bobbin lace. And the article that you will see, oh wait, I was going to comment about, yeah. So where I'm going to send you to is instyle.com. The headline, Dior uses an extremely rare technique dating back to the 15th century to create this delicate detail. So what really made a stir in my lace world is that it's not an extremely rare technique. It might have been extremely rare to the person who wrote this article. And so actually, if I scroll down a little bit, there's a close-up. Oh, wait, I should have shown you the dress. So there's the dress. And all those little flowers and butterflies and so on that are on there, those were handmade. And on this page, if you are so interested, here's a good close-up. There is a little video that they, I forget how long it is, 10 minutes or something, that shows the main woman who was working on this with her helpers. It shows you about bobbin lace if you are interested and want to learn more. So I will link that below, because I know lace comes up when I talk about it, and also from time to time, there's always someone like on Stitch Mania or someone that finds a video or somebody doing bobbin lace and puts it on, and there always seems to be some interest in it. Okay, a quick little book review, which I don't really do, but I just had to share this one. One thing that has been in my life the last few weeks has been Hamilton. If you are like me and joined Disney Plus just so you could watch the Hamilton movie, I just wanted to share, if you don't already know, this book, which is like a cool, covering of it. Hamilton the Revolution, and I believe there's another like Hamilton thing out there that is just all the music, the lyrics and everything. This is different. If you are I got this from my library, so it's from 2016, 2017, so it's been around for a few years. But what you can see is that, yes, it includes, all the lyrics, but it's annotated. So you get all kinds of background information, whether it's about the lyric, about the history, about the person singing, or there's all kinds of interesting things that are written by Lin-Manuel on this side. Also interspersed are all kinds of interesting essays. And they're written by Jeremy McCarter, who is one of the producers. They had come up with this idea to do this book. All kinds of interesting background information. So if you're into Hamilton, I suggest looking into this book, because you just learn so much more. If you're like me and you find something that you enjoy and then you want to spend all this time learning more about it, that's a great way to learn the background of Hamilton. I had not really been into it. Some people listen to the music over and over, have never seen the show. I was not one of those people. I knew it was an exciting thing, so I wanted to join in being able to see it on the small screen. All right, the last thing on my list is changing topics a little bit here. I don't want to leave out the reality of our world, not only COVID and quarantine and schools and all that related, but there's still a whole lot going on, needs to go on in social justice world, in Black Lives Matter world, in all that big over-encompassing movement that really got, what's the word? I want to say revitalized, and that's not quite, but from George Floyd at the end of May. And I was talking with a friend of mine about, the limitations of any one person, and feeling guilty when you can't do more, or you can't figure out how to do more, or you feeling guilty about the limitations of any one person and what they can do. And my friend brought to my attention, I'd never heard of this before. It is a song, Jana Stanfield, and it's one line that gets repeated over and over, and it is, I cannot do all the good that the world needs now, but the world needs all the good I can do. And I've held that sentence, statement, whatever, with me. I tried to kind of live up to it. The world needs all the good I can do. I will put a link below. You can listen to it, and I don't know, the first time I listened to it, I was like, what's going on here? Those words I read aloud are the only thing in the song. It repeats multiple times in English as well as in other languages, which is fascinating. So I'll put a couple links about that below. And in that spirit, I had another book recommendation or topic, but I don't have any physical book to show you, is learning about Elizabeth Jennings. And this, the way you find out things. This was a college friend of mine posting on Facebook that she was going to be introducing a book talk, and it sounded kind of fascinating, virtual. So I listened in. Elizabeth Jennings was a black woman living in New York City in the 1800s, and she was basically Rosa Parks 100 years before Rosa Parks. She was physically kicked off a streetcar in 1840s, 1850s. I should have looked up the date. But in that time period, 40s, 50s, in New York City, she was physically kicked off a streetcar. And she sued. And she won. And the whole story of how that all played out is really a jury of 12 white males agreed that she was wronged, that the streetcar people were in the wrong, whatever you want to call it, and she was awarded money for it. It's worth learning about her. I will put a link below to the video of the book talk that I listened into, and you'll see my college friend there. The reason she's involved with it is that she is a direct descendant of Elizabeth Jennings. This gentleman came out with this new book. I think it's a 2020 copyright. I think it's like relatively new. I haven't yet gotten a copy of it, but I started like Googling and, finding all kinds of places where she's out there. She's not like zero knowledge on the web, but there's not that much, and people should know more about her and know her story. So it's worth taking a look if it's something you might be interested in. I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. I know this was kind of light on the stitching showing, but it's the point that I wanted to come and check in with all of you. I so appreciate, as I said, anyone who, especially if you're still here, if you watch all the way to the end, and appreciate knowing how many options there are to watch on Flosstube, and all the ways you could be spending your time. If you're interested in seeing my stuff, well, it means a lot to me. So, not sure when exactly I'll be back, but I will be. Until next time, bye.